Content-based Physical and Health Education 1, and the subject is for DPPE and DJPE, PHE12. I'm the presenter, Mrs. Ansie Steyn, and my Hotmail address is ansiesteyn@hotmail.com. Good day, this is a contact class and this is to help you prepare for the examinations of the subject DPPE and DJPE, PHE12. I will discuss some of the content of your study guide in order to help you prepare for the coming exams. By now, you should have a good idea what the subject is about because you've completed an assignment and studied the study guide systematically. Please note that I cannot give attention to the whole content, so should you have any questions, please contact me for help. You can either phone me or mail me. In the latter case, I can send you a well-constructed, detailed answer to your question. Please also note that you only need to study your study guide for these exams. This includes the assignment you completed. Before you study the actual content, you first need to acquaint yourself with the learning outcomes of each unit. These learning outcomes form the core of your studies and guide you through the content and can be found at the beginning of each unit. After you've studied this, you will know what the unit is all about. Thereafter, you must look at the learning activities which follow the learning outcomes. It will be wise to do all these activities to the best of your ability before looking at the answers at the end of each unit. After you've completed them, you can go back to the answers at the end of the unit and measure your knowledge against the complete answers. In this way, you will get to know the content and also will know how questions can be asked in the exams. The study guide contains adequate information and facts. It is not necessary to study from any other source for the exams. When I mention a specific part of a unit which is important, I will first indicate the DJPE's reference number and thereafter the DPPE's reference number in brackets. For example, 4.4 and then in brackets 4.7, meaning that the content in the DJPE study guide can be found in 4.4 and the same content can be found in 4.7 in the DPPE study guide. Do not leave out any unit when preparing for the exams. I'm going to discuss the units separately and stress the most important facts. But please note that this presentation is not a discussion of the exam paper, but to help you with the most important content of this subject. Please make sure to take note of these and get to know the facts by heart. Remember that when answering a question, facts from different parts of the study guide can be applicable. It is not necessarily limited to one part of the guide. It is important to know that although physical and health education may seem as a non-exam subject for learners and a period where learners are encouraged to explore in a less formal environment, you as teacher should exactly know how to keep them busy and how and why certain activities should be presented. Therefore, the teacher should know certain facts about the subject PHE, as well as the correct procedures regarding the presenting of PHE. It is therefore of utmost importance that you as student teacher should know facts regarding the subject PHE. I stress this because some students are of the opinion that this subject does not need to be studied for, and then they do poorly in the exams. Take time to know your study guide and your assignment in order to present adequate facts during the exams. Now, just a few hints for the examinations before I discuss the units. Write neatly and legibly. You may use blue or black pen. Please do not even consider being dishonest. If found out, you will receive a 0 for the question paper. You may not leave the exam room before 30 minutes have expired. And if you do leave, you may not come back to continue answering the question paper. Also, you may not leave the exam venue during the last 15 minutes of the exams. Remember to sign the checklist. No smoking or eating is allowed in the room. Only paper provided by the invigilator will be accepted. So if you need more paper to answer questions, ask them to provide you with paper. That's very important. If you turn up 30 minutes after the exams have started, you will not be allowed to write, and this will result in no turn up. And make sure to know what is expected of you when a question is asked. Read through the action verbs found in 6 at the beginning of the study guide. For example, define means you must give a precise, brief meaning of something. And describe means you have to give a detailed feature of an issue. Please note that short answer questions will be asked, and the following kinds of questions will be asked. Definitions of terminology. For example, the definition of eye-foot coordination. And the answer will be to visually steer the movement of the feet. That's one of the examples. You have to look at all the definitions. And note that when you study the learning activities, you will also come across definitions of terminology. Another kind of short answer question is to fill in the correct word in a given sentence. For example, the sentence is, physical education contributes to strengthen what? Relationships. And the answer you have to fill then in is peer. You therefore have to know the content of the study guide in order to choose the correct answers. Now, let us look at Unit 1, where physical education opportunities for pre-primary learners are discussed. In 1.1, and remember what I said in brackets is for the DPPE study guide, the aims of physical education are discussed. And in 1.1.4 or then 1.1.2, the effects of physical education on the learner's academic performance are discussed specifically. It is important to note that physical education is linked to better brain function and thus better performance in school. Take note of all the facts regarding this topic. As I mentioned before, the learning outcomes and activities play a huge role in your study plan. If you can answer the learning outcomes and activities in detail, you know the content of that unit. After you've read through each unit, answer the LA questions on your own and look up the correct answers at the end of each unit to monitor whether you know the content of the specific unit. Remember also that physical education is an important subject at school and you should know facts in order to present it successfully. So facts are asked in the exams, not just an overview of the subject. Now, let's go on. In 1.2 or then 1.1.6, the contribution of PE to cross-curricular learning outcomes are discussed. Make sure to know and understand what this entails. For example, physical education support other subjects by reinforcing knowledge learned across the curriculum. This means topics which appear in physical education also can be discussed in other subjects, and physical education gives learners the opportunity to set and strive for personal goals. Also, it strengthens peer relationships because they learn to socialize when they, for instance, will have to cooperate while dancing, etc. Study the headings and also what each heading entails. Playful activities allow learners to explore and experience many fields, like to care for others, to investigate and discover, to learn to share, to take risks, and many other advantages. In 1.4 or 1.3, these advantages are set out, and make sure to know them. Features of outdoor play is set out in 1.7.3 or then 1.4.3, and in 1.8 brackets 1.7, the very important issue of safety procedures when presenting physical education are discussed. Safety is also always a very important aspect when learners are involved, so make sure to take note of these procedures. So we're finished with Unit 1. Let's turn to Unit 2, where the development of gross motor movements are discussed. So gross motor skills are discussed in this unit. But do you know what large or gross muscles are? They are the larger muscles of the body, for example, of the arms and legs. Whereas fine muscles are the small muscles, like those in the eyes and fingers. Firstly, activities and exercises to develop the larger motor skills are discussed. 2.1.1 and 2.1.2 in both study guides, that you can find those. In 2.4, eye-hand coordination and the development of this are discussed. And also eye-foot coordination in 2.5. In 2.8, the difference between stationary, that means not movable like a slide, and movable like a swing, play equipment for large muscle development are set out. Each kind of play equipment contributes to the development of the larger muscles. So a physical education teacher is responsible to lead the learner to the development of large and small muscles of the body, and should know which exercises contribute to each kind of muscle. Unit 3 is very interesting in the way that the development of fine muscles are discussed. In Unit 2, the larger muscles were discussed. Now it's the fine muscles. In the previous units, the larger muscles were discussed, so let us look at the fine muscles now. Firstly, can you remember which muscles of the body are the fine ones? Yes, amongst others, the eyes, the fingers, and the tongue. So how can they be developed? By eye tracking, as set out in 3.2.1 in both study guides. For instance, this entails, that's eye tracking, that a ball is fastened with a rubber string. You now hang the ball at the height of the child's nose. Can you picture this? The ball hangs at the height of the child's nose. You then swing the ball side to side, and tell the child to keep looking at the ball without moving the head. It's like watching tennis without moving the head, only the eyes. You can imagine that the child needs to use their eyes, meaning the fine muscles, to follow the ball, and in this way the eyes muscles are developed. In 3.2.1 it is explained in full. Can you think of other ways to help strengthen the eye muscles? One will be to hold a sweet in front of the child's eyes and move it, for instance, up and down instead of moving side to side, without moving the head, only using the eyes. You can think out other exercises too to make it interesting for the child without them even thinking about the fact that they are doing exercises of the eye muscles. And in 3.2.2, exercises to develop the muscles of the tongue are set out. Make sure to know them also. When we turn to Unit 4, body parts, their functions and dominance preferences are discussed. First, you should know what dominance entails. Now, some learners write and kick with their right hand and foot. Then their dominant hands and feet are right. Some prefer to do these activities with their left hands and feet. Then they are left-handed. That's dominance. Dominant means the one is preferred and used above the other, right or left. As indicated in the heading of this unit, it is also about the body parts. Do you know which body parts there are in the body? Do you know how they operate? Do you know which body part is the most important? And do you know how this body part operates? See 4.1 for the answers of all these questions. So look them up and study them. Like in other units, make sure to answer and study the learning activities, because if you can answer them correctly, you know the content of the unit well. Let us turn to Unit 5, where physical education opportunities for pre-primary learners. In DPPE Study Guide, the symptoms of a tense and relaxed body are discussed. This unit is mainly about the symptoms of, causes of, and how to manage stress. Even small children can have severe stress, and a physical education teacher should know how to diagnose this. See 5.1 for the symptoms. But do you also know what the main causes for stress are? See 5.2 or 5.2.1 in DPPE. In 5.6.1, brackets 5.5.1, sets out how emotions can cause stress. If a child, for instance, is treated unfairly at home, he or she will not feel safe and will experience psychological trauma. Will you know what symptoms to look for if you suspect one of your learners is traumatized? Study 5.6 or 5.5.1 then in detail to know this very important topic, meaning how to diagnose and be aware of this kind of stress in one of your learners. Will you be able to support and help them to better and even overcome his or her stress? See 5.6.2 or then 5.5.2. As always, the learning activities will guide you through the most important content of this unit. Study them. Unit 6 is about the issues pertaining to healthy nutrition and living. We know that physical education and exercises are very much to obtain a healthy body. But what about a healthy mind? A healthy body works hand in hand with a healthy mind. Let us look at these two concepts. In 6.5.1, mental or emotional health is explained. It is about the health of the mind, which is the center of your emotions. So if one is mentally healthy, you have a sense of contentment and also have the ability to deal with stress. Physical health, on the other hand, has got to do with the body itself. Mentally, mind, physical, body. If a person is physically healthy, he or she is fit and looks after the body. So your heart is in a good condition and you live a healthy lifestyle, eating the correct food. This is a very important unit, and in the sense that you can apply this content to your own as well as your learners' lives. In 6.1, healthy nutrition and physical health is discussed, and in 6.2, how your emotions can affect your physical health. 6.5 is about the very important issue of self-image. Firstly, acquaint yourself with the terms high and low self-esteem. There's a huge difference between a person with a high and a low self-esteem. Their actions differ, and a person or then a learner with a low self-esteem portrays certain features and characteristics which can be dangerous to the mental as well as physical health. Do you know them? It is clearly set out in the learning activities. Have a look at them. As said numerous times before, make sure to understand and also know the learning activities. Now, this concludes my discussion of the study guide. Please note that time does not allow me to discuss the whole content of the guide, but many important facts were discussed during this class. Make sure to give attention to them. We now have worked through the study guide and highlighted the most important content. Start studying by working through the study guide systematically and doing it unit by unit, giving a special attention to the content of this contact class. Good luck with this. Start early and start every day. Even if it's only half an hour of constructive study per day, it will help you getting acquainted with the work. I once again invite you to contact me should you have any questions or uncertainties regarding your subject. My cell phone number is 081 277 5321. You may contact me during the day up to 8 o'clock in the evening, with the exception of Sundays. Most students are considerate in this regard, and I really appreciate this. Enjoy the studies and do your best.